No.
Yeah, I did.
You went? It was windy, eh?
G'day everyone and welcome to another edition of the Weekend Wrap, brought to you by Crowcast, of course, our first round edition, and what a great way to start the season with a resounding win over the Saints. So we've got a lot to get through, so without any further ado, let's crack straight in, shall we? Good evening, and welcome to the Weekend Wrap, Round 1 versus the Saints. A fantastic victory by the Adelaide Crows. A great way to start the season and a great way to start our Weekend Wraps for the season proper for 2025. Welcoming, of course, Macca. How are you, sir?
Well, I braved a very bad headache to come here, so if I leave halfway through, you know I'm not feeling that good, but I just couldn't miss the opening show, mate.
Brownie, how are you?
Great, mate. Yeah, pretty happy after a good trip to Adelaide Oval.
Now, you went to the game, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. What was the atmosphere like there? It sounded pretty loud on the TV.
Yeah, considering it's 42,000, but it was pretty loud and it was just a really positive vibe. I think people went there expecting good things, and at no stage they really got let down. So it was a really good vibe at the ground all day.
Yeah, fantastic. And Big Man, of course, returning again. How are you, sir?
Thanks, Feen. Yeah, good. Voice is a bit sore after a few celebrations today. There's a few goals kicked, so I had a great time. It was the boys a bit scratchy, but the boys played well. So excited to talk about it.
Yeah, fantastic. We've got a cast of thousands in the Discord chat, which is fantastic to see, and we've got people flowing in on YouTube, which is great. If you're on Discord, of course, don't forget you can come in and have a chat and let us know what you thought about the game. We love the interaction and we welcome the interaction, and there is no limit, as I suspected last week with Arab, but it must have been a problem on his end. So people also, particularly those listening on the audio feed after the cast tonight, Macca and Brownie have got microphones. Isn't it lovely?
Well, with Feen said, get them or else, mate. So we got one.
The dulcet tones, it just sound beautiful. You sound like radio personalities.
Yeah, well, I don't know that we'd actually sound that good, Dean, but it's nice of you to say it, mate.
I'm just trying to pump you up. Don't worry about that. Yeah,
I
as
knew
said,
that.
Tons of people on YouTube, of course, as I said, and as Four Eyes Billy mentions on the chat, we've had such a good response to our content so far this season. We're already up about 110 subscriptions on YouTube, which is amazing, and we're not far off 1,000 subs, you guys. So if anyone's listening and they like the content that we're providing, please get around us and give us a subscribe on YouTube, because it really does help us out. And once we get to $1,000 subs, that'll be a long journey, Macca, won't it? It's been a long journey getting to 1,000 subs, hasn't it?
Well, we've worked our way up, Dean. We were, you'd remember even better than I, but, when I joined, we were down 100 or 200 or something like that.
Way back at the beginning. Our first podcast, I reckon, we got 120 listeners. and now we're regularly getting over 1,000. So it's just awesome to have the support. So thanks very much. We won't waffle on any further. All right. Without any further ado, why don't we get straight into, if I can organise myself, why don't we get straight into the review of the match, shall we?
Let's do it.
So, of course, it was the Crows. Whoops, what am I doing? There we go. It was the Crows, 21 goals, 9, 135. What's that? 63-point winners in the end. St Kilda 10 goals, 12, 72. I'll go first with the gentlemen who were at the ground. Big man, what are your overall thoughts of the game?
Yeah, look, for those, they probably mentioned on the TV, I haven't seen the replay yet, but it was pretty windy out there. So the fact that we were able to play some pretty slick footy for most of the game was really good. I think there was a few defensive lapses from time to time, but that tends to happen, especially at the start of the season when teams are still figuring things out. I loved the work of our forwards today. I thought our midfields was really strong. I felt like pretty much everyone who played in there had a really good day. It'd be actually pretty hard to choose who'd get the Brownlow votes, I reckon.
That's a very good point, big man. Very good point. I reckon you could toss up between at least three that could do it. Dawson, Rankin, Soligo.
Feels like it's out of those three. I mean, personally, I thought Dawson stood out, but just with his marking, his ball use, and he got tagged and still had a great game. So, geez, what a great game from him. And yeah, like to see Soligo and Rankin through the middle, and Crouchy had a great game in there too. So, now I know Jack McRae had a pretty good game for the Saints, but apart from that, we trounced their mids, which was good to see.
Yeah. Browny, what were your thoughts, mate? You weren't at the game.
Yeah,
Macca.
I thought my highlight would probably be the midfield. I just thought the running patterns in the midfield were a lot better, and like every time Crouch got the ball, he was still doing his little, 2 meter, 1 meter handballs, but he was handballing to people that were moving and were clear. And I just thought the way we moved the ball, really quick handballs in succession to get a player free and running, was fantastic. Probably the best for a number of years that I've seen. So, and I think when you've got Draper, who's only played just over a quarter today, but he's going to play more minutes. He's going to get better. Just the depth in the midfield was that was really impressive. I thought, similarly, I think the forward line functioned pretty well. The back line had a few glitches. I thought the main thing with the back line was some of the decision making coming out of the back line, and some of they just picked the wrong options a few times, and that's just one it's pressure, and two it's early in the year that they'll get better at that. But overall, it was probably the most fun I've had at Adelaide Oval for quite a few years.
That's not true. You and I got pissed at the SANFL Grand Final. Come on, mate.
I'll like that. The most fun I've had at an AFL Pros game in a long time.
Macca, I thought one of the dangers coming into the game was going to be that we might have been a bit top heavy down back. How did you see that panning out?
Although they're fairly tall down there, they also are fairly mobile. I thought actually that if all our complaints about various people and players that didn't get mentioned, particularly Dan Curvis, the side actually, I think the selectors actually proved to be pretty right with the team they put out there. That's the first thing I'd like to say. So we normally slam them, but I think, they got it pretty right. There was a few things to me that were highlights. I loved the way we had a burst in the first quarter, which when we were absolutely irresistible, and we repeated that burst again in the third quarter, and that type of football, absolutely outstanding. The other thing too, we had 12 goal kickers, and that's also a very good sign. The fact that you're not just confined to 2 or 3. And another highlight for me in the game was I think it was the third quarter when the first 3 goals were kicked by Cumming, Peatling, and Neil Bull, and our 3 new boys all in a row, one after the other. And I thought that was very, very good too. So, and also our midfield really, really fired, and I can't think of really a weak link in the. In fact, Crouch had his usual handballs, 8 kicks, 23 handballs off of memory, and but I thought he used the ball very well with his handball. So that was very good to see. And overall, I'd have to say that there are, and I think that has been pointed out by the other 2 guys, there were a couple of weaknesses, and they have to be tightened up against a better side. But overall, you can see the pattern of style of game we're going to play. And if we're going to play that style of game and you get it really going, it's irresistible and very hard to stop.
Pardon me,
So
I was
back
just
to you,
adjusting
Bean.
my camera. Yeah, look, it had periods of scrappiness. It's very hard when you come out and play, and you guys have all played, you get a lead early, and it's evident that you've got the wood over the opposition. It's very hard to stay focused, and I felt like at times we lacked a little bit of focus, and our ball handling at times during the game was a bit sloppy, but we had some purple patches there where we moved the ball really quickly, and we're very, very efficient with ball in hand. And, I think given the circumstances and given the quality of the opposition, it was just a great first round. Great way to get the season off and running.
It's a very good
Now,
point.
don't
you raised
forget,
about
as I
quality.
mentioned... Sorry, go on, Mac.
I was just going to say, you did raise a good point about the quality of the opposition too, because they had somewhere like, I think they said 8 out, but if you look at it, there's probably 6 that would have been in the side, so that's fairly significant.
Yeah, they were definitely undermanned, and Marshall got injured early, and they didn't really have any sort of potency aerially up forward. So, I mean, most of their goals came from the ground. But look, you only beat the team that's put in front of you, and I thought, given the circumstances, as I said, and the fact that we'd had a week off, so a little bit rusty in the skills, etc., I thought it was a really good hit out. Now, before we move into a little bit of a look at the team stats, just a reminder, everyone in Discord, there's 30 plus of you in there. If any of you want to have a chat and give us your opinion, feel free, just stick your hand up, and we will get you on board. And I've got to say, my new graphics are just looking fantastic here. All right. So let's just have a look at some of the team stats. We outpossessed them on the outside. That's the bottom line. We had 429 disposals to 350, 239 kicks to 202, 190 handballs to 148. Our disposal efficiency was surprisingly high, actually. I didn't think it was going to be that high, but it was 74.4 as opposed to their 66.6. We had 59 inside 50s to 52. We're far more efficient than them when we got the ball inside 50, 57.6% to 46.2. We took 12 marks to their 10 inside 50. Pardon me. Centre clearances, I thought Riley O'Brien and our midfield started really sloppily. I thought their stand-in ruckman did a really good job on O'Brien early, and I reckon he got a rocket because those numbers really did balance up after quarter time. We ended up 20-11 in front centre clearances, 26-31 around stoppage. O'Brien had 53 hitouts to 36. I'm not sure of the hitouts to advantage, but it would have been less than 10, I reckon. Contested posies was pretty even, 141 to 138, but uncontested. We just got the ball on the outside too much for them, 274 to 214. Marks 102 to 79, which reflects the fact that we were kicking the ball rather than handballing more often than not. Turnovers even, tackles fairly even, 60 to 68. So, yeah, look, I think we just controlled the play a little bit more. I think we made less mistakes than they did, and we were more potent up forward. Brownie, is that really the tale of the tape, do you think?
Well, as much as we were potent up forward, I think there's a massive amount of room for improvement still. Wasn't a lot of, balls marked on leads coming in from outside 50. I reckon Phil thought got his mitts on a couple that he probably should have taken.
Just going to get you to talk up a little bit, Jeffrey.
Oh, okay. But I thought there was a lot of room for improvement, but generally, we beat them on every line, really, didn't we? So, you've got to be happy.
Forward connection, I think, is a bit of a problem for us, Brownie, you're right. And I expected us to hit targets, hit lead-ups a little bit more, big man, but it seemed like we were just quite happy to bomb it in and take advantage of our aerial dominance up there. Were you a little bit disappointed with our connection between midfield and forwards on transition?
Look, it wasn't diabolical by any means. It definitely could be sharpened up a bit. A few times I was like, I wish they lowered the eyes. I've seen us do a lot worse, though, in that regard. I agree with what Brownie said. Phil thought he's so big out there. There's a few marks where he should have taken that, for whatever reason, slipped out of his hands. Probably that wind didn't help as well, I'd imagine. But there's also some goals we kicked where we nearly stuffed it up a few times and we still managed to get the goal. So there's swings and roundabouts. I'd love to know what Macca thought of Rochelle's game, because I thought he was outstanding up forward in terms of his unselfishness and his ability to create by hand and foot. I thought he really, obviously Fogg kicked the 4 goals, but I thought Rochelle was our most dangerous forward today.
Yeah,
I'm glad you raised
I'm going to have to keep you guys in check now. Big man, you're not aware of our format, but you're getting ahead of yourself talking about individuals. We're just talking about the team at the moment. Otherwise, just stuff me up, mate. Just keep on track, or else I'm going to have to put you in the sin bin.
Well, there's normally not room. I'm normally in there.
I've had to build an extension, mate. Don't worry.
Okay.
Matt, what do you think about our forward 50 entries?
Look, some of them were quite scintillating, actually, in terms, but that wasn't a high percentage. And the ones that really were done in proper fashion that you would think like a classy team would do, and we did a few of those, and which resulted in very easy-looking goals. But there were a lot of bombing and too much bombing, actually, and a lot of times not always kicked to advantage. So it depended really on who was using the ball, bringing it in, because some of them used it a lot better than others. And look, we can improve in that area. It's good to get the score that we did, doing it the way that we did. But I think, it's a credit to the forwards to the fact that sometimes it wasn't really kicked to their advantage, but they actually worked really hard to make it that way. So And I think the forward lines as a group worked very well. And we're not going to talk individuals, but one has been mentioned that did very well.
Training you nicely. Look, I don't know. It looked to me like we were a bit lazy the way we moved the ball forward. I just felt like, we knew we had an advantage up there, and I thought the only forward who really worked hard for his disposals, and I actually thought he was one of our best, was Fogarty. He got up and down the ground a bit, and he was rewarded, I thought. But I think it's something that we really do need to work on. In fact, our transition in general, I thought, was lazy, and against a better side, we may not have been so dominant. St Kilda did score off return inside 50s a few times, and that was purely because we weren't very aggressive or attacking. We were quite happy. They have a tendency, as I mentioned in the preview, they have a tendency to guard the corridor, and they want you to go wide and they want you to go long to their numbers. And I felt like we fell into that trap, Brownie, a few times where instead of trying to run through their zone and spread it, we were just quite happy to go to one-on-one contests and back ourselves in. Is that the way you saw it at the ground?
Yeah, and some of that may have been we just weren't running hard enough and making enough options for the guys to go to. I think we were even in the forward line, we were a little bit stagnant at times and not giving enough options, and there was not a lot of people making leads. It seemed a bit cluttered. They were trying to kick over defenders and just lob it onto someone, but yeah, it just wasn't very clean, I didn't think.
Yeah. Jeffrey, I'm just going to get you to turn yourself up a notch.
Yeah, mate.
Yeah, big man, I've felt that our transition is a concern, and I've felt like our connectivity with forward 50 is a concern. A game like that can paper over some cracks if we're not careful, and I would hope that it's something that we continue to work on, because we've got a lot of pace around the ball. We've got a lot of good users of the ball on the outside. We saw with Geordie Dawson. We didn't see a lot from Miller. I didn't see a hell of a lot from Mitch Hinge. Saw a bit from Isaac Cumming, and a little bit from Lockie Scholl. But I just felt, considering the amount of ball we had on the outside, I felt like we were playing into their structure, and a better side might have punished us.
Yeah. Sorry, you go, Macca.
Well, I was just say at times that's true. There's no doubt about that. I mean, they didn't have their 100% side there, and like if you were doing that, say against GWS, I think you would have got punished very badly with some of those entries. There's no doubt about that. We got away with it this week because we were playing against a lesser team. Some of the boys actually did some very nice movements into the forward line, but there were some that were done more with hope rather than with skill. And the skill of the forwards, and one particular one who we're not allowed to mention yet, he actually turned some of those poor entries into eventually into a goal, through a goal assist into goal. So I have to say that the work rate of the forward line was excellent. And in spite of the fact that not all the transition in there was good, I did think our forwards really, their work rate was very, very good thing.
Agreed. Big man, that was the other thing I looked at in the preview, is St Kilda have a tendency to want to kick the ball out of trouble and out of defence, and they'll tend to kick to contests and then try to crowd that contest and keep shuffling the ball forward. I felt like we held our shape pretty well, and we were able to force quite a few turnovers on their exits out of defence, and that was actually a positive of our game. And like Macca said, our pressure inside forward 50 was excellent, and that was something that may have been an issue for us given our height down there. Is that how you saw it?
I think so. And look, obviously that comes partly down to the skill level of the Saints defenders, and some of their exits weren't great unless they were coming through Wanganeen Miller, who was obviously pretty good. He had a few turnovers, but he's basically, without him, they would have been in a bit of strife, I reckon. We probably would have been able to get more repeat entries inside 50 if not for him. So I like the fact that, in fact, I thought our structure behind the ball was quite good today. We didn't get sucked up too much. So there was very few times where I felt the Saints forwards got out the back. There was only a couple of moments. I remember there was the one where Marshall passed to Wanganeen Miller, and we were just a bit open there. But for the most part, we were able to cover those holes and make sure that we don't get drawn upfield too much, because especially this time of year that can tend to happen. And I also like the fact that in terms of our contest work, we didn't most of the time commit too many bodies to the contest. I felt like we generally had people at the fall of the ball, which has been an issue in the past. There was a couple of moments deeper in defence where there wasn't enough talk and some of the boys went up, and I think we probably cost 1 or 2 goals doing that. But I've seen a lot worse from us in terms of our structure and our ability to defend the whole ground.
Yeah, very true. How did we see our setup down back? I thought Laddie, for example, ended up with 27 touches. I didn't think he was terrible. He made some good plays and was quite clean, actually, with ball in hand, but it doesn't seem to have a lot of defensive action, if you ask me, Brownie.
Yeah, well, that's been the issue, I think, the last couple of years. I don't know if that's will or just capacity. I'm not really sure, but
yeah, you're gonna have to speak up, matey.
If the ball's turned over, I think he tends to struggle to run with. I think that's been an issue for quite a while, but it probably wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't probably hurting us today, but against a good side. I mean, you look at Essendon under the roof next week, and you've got that. Turnovers are going to be very costly, and the ability to run two ways is going to be really important. So that's when it's going to really come to the fore.
Yeah, well, they had. Who was that small of theirs that kicked a couple? Lady was on him.
Max Hall?
Was it Hall? Yeah. Yeah, I felt like he got off the chain a little bit, and that was Rory's. Look, I don't know. I really do like Hugh Bond. I know that they'll be very, very keen to have Laird play a role in the side. I felt like we were perhaps, given the makeup of their forward line, we were perhaps one down on small defenders. I'm a bit surprised that they stayed with the 3 keys, but probably simply because we were not under any danger. But again, I feel like we didn't get a lot of defensive action out of Miller. We didn't get a lot out of Rory Laird, and we could be susceptible to small forwards like a Jamie Elliott, for example, if we keep that configuration.
Yeah, look, I thought Miller was probably the least impact on the game out of all of our players, actually. And I think we were talking about our last show. We were more in favour of Dan Curvis and Miller getting some form up in the twos and getting himself back to his best. Laird, Laird's good in a contest, but I don't think he's a very, very tight defender. He was good in contests, there's no doubt about that, because that's shown by the number of times he did win the ball. But he also does give his opponent an opportunity to get away from him a bit as well, because he gets drawn to contests rather than worrying about his man. So that's the downside of Laird as a halfback flanker.
Yeah.
And I guess, big man, considering the win, it might sound as if we're being I'm being a little bit negative. I'm really not. I was actually very happy overall with the way that we played, particularly given that it was round 1. I'm just like, that was a St Kilda reserve side. They had some really key players out for them. They don't have a good record at Adelaide Oval anyway. And I'm just conscious that There's some really good teams around this year. There's a lot of hype around Adelaide. Jared Healy had us half winning the bloody flag, for God's sakes, during the call.
He did, didn't he?
I mean, like, let's just keep a lid on it for now. But when we do come up against those good sides that have high work rates and have a good even spread of talent across the ground, I guess that's what I'm looking at, that we can't afford to be that lazy and we can't afford to lack defensive action. And I felt we let them run through a few times coming the other way. They were able to come through. Like, there were a few coast-to-coast ball movements that they did where we just really looked like we were guarding grass and we didn't put a lot of pressure on them, frontal pressure on them. Did you see that at the ground, big man?
To a degree, I don't know. I think it was that bad. I think that tends to be a bit of a byproduct of early season with fatigue and everything. It's hard sometimes with that transition, especially this time of year. If they had the wind as well, that obviously wouldn't have helped because those kicks go an extra few meters longer. So, look, I'll be honest, it didn't stand out to me, Feng, in terms of our ability to cut them off. I thought actually we did a pretty good job. I think there was obviously a few patches there, a couple in the towards the end of the first and a little bit in the later in the game. But gee, I mean, you're right. Given the opposition, we have to take that into account because it's not going to be like that next week against Essendon.
No.
But that's football. You can't control and dominate 100% of the time against any team, really. So that's just how it goes. Just to comment on Laird. I mean, every team tends to have at least one unaccountable defender who's going to rack up a lot of ball. It seems like we've chosen Laird for that gig. Is he the kind of guy you want?
Choice.
I mean, we know he's going to win the ball. He knows he's a magnet. He's not the greatest by foot. We know that too. I like the fact that he handballed quite a bit today to players in better positions. I thought that was good to see because Laird in the past has tended to go with a kick at the dump kick down the line. So we didn't see that as much today. Maybe when there's a bit more pressure, that might happen, which obviously is a worry. But I think we need to get Miller into the game more from that halfback. I think that's what do you have today? It would have been barely more than a dozen touches. I mean, we know he's a good ball user when in form, and I don't think we're able to get him to break the lines today. I thought he put the brakes on a bit too much. So that's something that stood out to me was as much as I really enjoyed our work through the corridor, I think some of our ball movement from our halfbacks could have been a bit sharper.
Agreed.
Macca,
agreed.
So I was just going to ask Macca, what did you think of our kick-ins? Because I must admit I didn't love them today.
Well, Keane was the main one to do the kick-ins.
Yeah.
Look, when he's on, he's very, very good with his kicks because he's a beautiful kick. Technically, he's got a very good kicking action and he can kick a long way and generally kick accurately. The one thing I don't like about him kicking off is he takes chances. And he'll sometimes go to the skinny option, the thin option, rather than the obvious one. So, look, there were a few dodgy ones today, and that's, as I say, it's Keane's nature. He's got a bit of gambler in him when he really tries to go to places where he shouldn't really be going. And look, I think the more he plays the role, the better he'll get at it. But I think they just got to keep on his back that. Don't take the risky option. Just take the obvious one.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I don't think we did. Sorry, Feng. I don't think we did the old Luke Brown long down to the right flank too often today. But
no.
It did seem at times like we weren't able to exit out of defence from the kick-ins as nice as cleanly as I'd like, especially when we're kicking into the wind. And one thing I've also noticed is that short kick to the pocket, you got to be careful of that now because they call you play on a lot more now with that not 15 rule. So you got to be really careful with those. Otherwise, it's basically a worthless kicking.
Well, you say that we didn't do the long down the right, but essentially we did the next best thing, which was short to the pocket, then the long down the right. And I guess that was my observation in terms of our transition, both from kick-ins and in general play, that we weren't terribly dynamic in the way that we moved the ball. We didn't come up the middle very much at all. We didn't hit a lot of diagonals. In fact, I can't remember trying to cut through their zone to hit the corridor. We were quite content to go up and down the lines. Now, look, whether that was by design, whether that was how they decided to play, I don't know. But it didn't look convincing to me. And, mate, if you're going to have Rory Laird as your designated unaccountable defender, then you may as well not have Wayne Miller in the side because you can only afford one. And Miller in form is a far better user of the ball than Laird. I think if Laird is going to be a bit of an unaccountable distributor, then we need someone like Hugh Bond in to take care of a small man that gets off the leash like a Charlie Cameron. What do you reckon, Jeff?
Yeah, well, I don't think Laird's the man for that. And most teams have got one really dynamic, fast, small forward that is going to get hold of you. And I don't think we've got really, unless, you sacrifice Michael Lanny, but we haven't got the pace for the really quick guys. I think he showed a lot last year. And I think he uses the ball better than Laird as well. I think that's going to be a problem going forward. But the problem is the hierarchy love him, and it's going to be a bit like the Rory Sloane thing. He's going to have to pretty much fall on his sword before he gets kicked out of the team.
Unfortunately, that's it. All right. Just before we get into some individuals, I notice we've got a cast of thousands in the audience, and no one wants to say a word, which is highly unusual because I don't mind having a chat. Maybe, Macca, I think sometimes you might scare him away with your incisive commentary.
Undoubtedly, so. That's always me. Always blame me, mate.
Don't be shy, those in the Discord studio audience. If you do want to have something to say, just stick your hand up. I'm keeping an eye on it. So the moment someone wants to say something, then I will bring them on board. And we always love the interaction. All right, let's have a look at a couple of blokes that I've just picked out. Now, not necessarily my best players as such, but just players that I thought were really good. Geordie Dawson, 27 touches, 9 marks, 4 tackles, 2 clearances, 6 inside 50s, and just shy of 650 metres gained. And didn't get a huge amount of midfield time, which I really, really like. He's such a good distributor. He's such a good mark around the ground. I think we actually used him very, very well today. Mac?
I thought we did, Feen. He spent a bit of time up forward as well, which always creates a problem for anybody who's got to stand him no matter where he is. The man is an absolute star. When you look at the players that we've brought into the club over the years, I don't know whether there's maybe say Darren Jarman, but leaving Darren Jarman out, but he's the best that's ever come to this club because he's complete. He can play anywhere. He can play in the back line, the forward line, the midfield, and he just plays well wherever he is. And I think he'll get 3 votes for today.
Best to ever come to the club. What about Chad Rintoul? What about Aaron Keating?
What about you? I would say, what about him?
Premiership player.
That could be my only question about those two. What about them?
Luke Loudon?
Luke Loudon?
Yeah, but no. But Dawson. I watched him at Sydney, and I watched. I was an admirer of his when he was playing at Sydney because I watched every game, and I could see this lad just developing and a half-back flank. And then the last season they had him there, they moved him to a wing, and he just dominated on the wing. So I thought this guy can play anywhere, I think. And we've got him, and he can absolutely play anywhere. And he's a great leader. He leads by example. He doesn't have to do a lot of talking. His boot does the talking, like that 70-metre goal he kicked. That was just an absolute ripper. gee, you'd love to play with him because, I mean, he's a great player and a great leader. And, yeah, best on ground today for me. He's complete.
Agreed.
Player.
How did he look to you at the ground, Brownie?
Well, fantastic. I think the one thing with Dawson, I mean, I know his last season at the Swansea got him third in their BNF, but I think since he's come here, he's taken that leadership role, and I think he's now like his marking's gone to a new level.
Yeah.
He's got the confidence, but he's trying to lead by example, and his marking is just incredible. His use by foot, like his ability to kick over lines. And I also think he's got a little bit more physical in the last 12 months, which I love to see. So yeah, I think a lot of the commentators were calling Crouch as best on ground, but I think Dawson's actual impact in the game was far bigger.
I agree. I didn't think Crouchy didn't play bad, but I don't think he was anywhere near best on ground. What are your thoughts, big man?
I mean, firstly on Dawson, I'm Brownie nailed it. His marking is outstanding, and we knew he was a good intercept mark, but his ability to now, on whether it's on the wing down the line as that get out, contest, or whether it's up forward now, he just approaches the high ball with such confidence now. He's basically the best mark in our team, maybe alongside Philthorpe. So, he's a star. There's no doubt about it. We know he's not an amazing clearance player, but his ability by foot is unbelievable as well. So, no, he was amazing today. I thought he was definitely best on ground. As for Crouchy, I mean, Crouchy was Crouchy, but what I loved about him today was his handballs to players in better positions. There was no hack kicks or short dabs. He constantly released our runners, and his hands, because when it's windy, it's not easy to pick up the ball sometimes. It's going left and right, and it's hard to judge sometimes. But he was clean as a whistle in there, and how good was that tackle too that he laid just quietly? That was a ripper. So, if you could play like that every week, you'd take that. Even the most, let's just say, the biggest Crouch haters out there, and there's a certain rabbit that might agree with that.
He's in the chat. He's in the chat, and I know he doesn't agree with you. Even the rabbit would have to admit Crouchy was pretty good today. That goal was the right too.
Wasn't it? That was a great goal, actually. That really came out of nowhere, didn't it? I thought, who kicked that? Bloody Crouch. It was a rip of a goal.
I'm just waiting for Rabbit to stick his head up and have a word. What's happening?
Oh, he's in his burrow at the moment, mate. Oh, here he is.
Yeah, no, he has to have something to say. What's going on with my camera? Oh, anyway. All right. So while I'm frozen and looking at my camera, let's also talk about Darcy Fogarty, who I thought, on balance, was probably our best forward. He certainly worked the hardest. Only the 12 touches, but he took 6 marks, kicked 4 goals, had 8 score involvements, 4 inside 50s, and had 284 metres gained, which tells me he worked hard, got up and down the ground. I actually thought it was a really good game. He took a couple of really strong marks, particularly again when Tex went off. And apologies, people, while I mess around with my camera. When Tex went off, he really came to the fore, I thought, and had a good game.
Yeah, look, I really like Fogg's game. I thought that today, let's go back to the past. Normally Walker is the leader of the crowd down there, and Fogg and Philthorpe have been sort of backups emerging. But I thought today Fogarty looked like he was the leader down there in the forward line, and Walker was an accessory. And I don't know whether anybody else got that impression, but the way Fogg inserted himself in the game at times, I thought was excellent. And whereas in the past, I think we rolled back 2 years ago, when anybody was critical of him for not leading enough, I thought he got right up at the half forward several times, and I thought that he's really emerging as a proper full forward for us, or a second full forward, or a decoy full forward, or whatever you want to call him. But because you've got Thilthorpe there as well. But I think Fogg's really emerging and taking Walker's place.
What do we think about the triple threat, big man? Is there? Can we make the triple threat work with Walker there?
I think so. I mean, I don't think Tex is going gangbusters at the moment. I still want to see a bit more from him. Obviously, he got subbed off, so that can't have a big game when you don't play the whole thing. But I
actually thought that was a really good move by Nix, by the way.
I agree. And it let obviously Dan Curtin didn't have a big game, but I was good to see him stay out there. Let him stay out there. And I thought he had a couple of nice moments in the back half of the game. The thing with Fogg, it was weird because I listened during the week. David King, might have been last week, said that he's a bit of a tease. I don't know how much footy of the Crows David King's been watching, because Fogg's been a pretty good player for a while now. And I thought I agree with Macca. He does seem like the leader in that group, in that forward group, and he's pushing up higher and higher up the ground. It seems. He's sort of taking that Tex role at centre half forward, and the more he's on the move, I think the better he plays. And because and one other thing that's great to see, he's not wrestling nearly as much these days. In those high balls, he's approaching it, he's jumping at it, and it makes such a difference compared to how he was about 3 years ago.
Agreed.
Yeah, spot on.
Brownie, still on Fogarty, but just a bit of a segue to Dan Curtin, who I felt like took a while just to find his feet and looked better around the ball. Is that his role, sort of wing, high half forward, midfield, or is he eventually going to be that third tall with Darcy and Thilthorpe?
I don't know that I don't know if he's going to be a tall forward. I think sort of wing, or even sort of half back. Like he had a couple of good moments today. He took a couple of good marks, and he gives me a bit of a Jordan Dawson vibe. He's got a beautiful breaking kick. I reckon his marking's got a lot of potential as his confidence grows to get a lot better. But I probably wouldn't put the pressure on him and expect him to be able to perform. I mean, it took Fogg 4 years to really get to the level he's at. I don't think we can afford to have another Fogg in the forward line. We need to be pretty switched on and pretty effective. But I think there's a role for Curtin and coming off the bench. But I think wing halfback, that kind of thing, he probably is going to get cleaner as well. Like his best is really good, I think. But I think it's probably it's getting the games into him and getting the confidence.
I think we've got to remember too, Big Man, that he's 197 centimetres. Like, he is only 4 centimetres shorter than Thilthorpe and Riley O'Brien. And so you're looking at him as a mobile sort of medium forward type. But in actual fact, his development is probably going to track more like a key position player, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, it's a good point you make, Feen. And I mean, he's obviously a big boy, but that doesn't mean a whole lot when you come into the AFL, because you're playing against guys that are even bigger. So I know people are going to be quite critical of the way we're using him. They're probably saying we're not putting him in a set position, or he's not going to be a forward. Long down the line, he's probably going to be a midfielder, or what are we doing with him? I think for the moment, I like him playing as high up the ground as possible, because I think his leading patterns are quite good. He didn't get used a lot today. Unfortunately, there's a few times I was watching and I thought, use Dan, but they didn't. So, and I think another thing I would like to see from him is just to back himself more in the air. He took a couple of nice marks today, and I think if he once he learns to really back himself and have the confidence to launch at the ball, he's going to take a few more, which would obviously do heaps for him. Like, you're right, Fogg took a long time. I won't lie, there was a time there, probably around 2021, where I thought Fogg might not make it. So, Dan's only in his start of his second year, so got to be patient, get some games into him, see how he goes. You know, if he can't touch it, then maybe let him play some SANFL footy and dominate there first. But for the time being, I'd still love to see him get a few more games in the role.
Yeah. Now we've got Arab on the chat on the stage. Arab, mate, how you going?
Good. How are you guys? How's everything going?
Oh, look at you. It's all working. Now speak nice and clearly, mate, because we don't want to miss a word.
Yeah, go, Arab, go, mate.
Just to Dan Curtin, to what you're saying about him. The thing is, Feen, I remember you mentioned this about Rochelle a few years back. When we drafted him, you said that it's very hard for a player who moves forward and then transitions back into the midfield or change positions into the year that they were drafted in. Like we see that with Fogarty. When he was drafted, it said that he was a forward midfielder, but he was playing mostly forward, and then he's a forward. And same now with Rochelle. He's like, hybrid midfield forward. He's more of a forward, really like half forward. And now it's Dan Curtin. He's not a forward. He's that like attacking halfback flanker, really. That's his role. That's where he is. He's got that kick like Dawson's kick, and he will do really well. If you remember when Dawson first came into the club, that role that he was playing earlier on in his Crows days, he would do that role so good.
Mate, you make a good point with regards to Curtin playing a different role that he's accustomed to. Like he went through his champs year sort of playing more down back than anything else, if I remember rightly, and he certainly started his career at the Crows playing defence as well. Look, I'm prepared to give him all the time in the world. I see enough in him skill-wise and temperament-wise to certainly persevere with him. I just think we've got to be patient. He may be in and out of the side a little bit over the course of the next 12 months, but I just think we've got to be patient. I think that there's a lot to like about him, and we've just got to find the role that suits him best and make the most of his skills. What do you think?
Yeah, of course.
Thanks, Arab.
Thank you.
Lovely to hear you as usual. All right, the last guy that I want to talk to is the guy that everyone was trying to steal my thunder on, and that's Josh Rochelle, which is why I was shutting you all up. 21 touches, 5 marks, scored 2 goals, 2, and gave away about 1,000. Had 12 score involvement, 6 inside 50s, and nearly 400 metres gained. If ever there was a bloke that got just rewards for a pretty solid pre-season, it was this lad, and I loved it. He played the percentages. He was unselfish. He was playing the team game, and when he needed to go and take his opportunities, he did. Clearly the best game that Josh has played for the club, and if we get 23 games like that out of him, we'll go a long way towards being a potent force. That was fantastic, I thought. Brownie, what did you think? I know that you and I have shared concerns about him. So
yes, I haven't said a lot of positive things in the past, but I did think today his work rate was really good. I thought the most positive thing was his defensive pressure, and I think his defensive pressure resulted in a couple of goals. I think one by him and one, I can't remember who the other one was, but it just kept going. He just looked like he's switched on, and he knows that he's got to perform now. I still think he's one-on-one in the air. He hasn't got the ability to get that touch, and they just walk around him and mark over him, and he does drop the occasional mark. But I thought overall, if he can bring that level of pressure every week, and he kicks goals under pressure consistently. He very rarely misses. The one that he did miss was, set shot 25 metres out. You'd probably say he's a 50-50 with that. But if he was under pressure with the same shot, he gets it just about every time.
I think that shot was the only set shot that we missed. I was keeping note
Dawson
because of
missed
course
one.
Dawson, yeah.
Dawson missed one too. So there's a couple of even I could have kicked that's coming up this week. But I've got, if I miss Rochelle's shot, then I need to be shot because that was an absolute dolly, Mac.
Oh, Fiend, I don't know, mate. I mean, last year you did the I can kick that, and they had to take you to hospital after with your leg.
I've been doing my
I'm
stretches.
not backing you, mate.
Been doing my stretches.
I'm not putting good money on you. I can tell you that.
Oh,
No, look, honestly, I know you'll have an honest crack at it, mate. But I'm worried about the leg going, mate. I'm worried
just
about
get
the
on
leg.
with Rochelle. Just come out
Well,
with me and have
look,
a kick.
I love Rochelle's game. Absolutely loved his game. I actually wasn't upset about when he did the teeth thing even last year. I thought it was good, but
Yeah.
only because I would have done things like that when I played. But no, look, I thought I loved what Rashford did today. I thought he was a real team man in the sense that he was always looking at an opportunity to give it to somebody in a better spot. And look, he was involved in 10 goals in 10 goal involvements. That's an incredible scoring involvement. That's an incredible effort. And
It was 12 actually.
12, yeah. Well, it's
Yep.
even better. So look, I thought that Rash has got tons and tons of ability he hasn't always used it wisely. But he's obviously. I was very critical of him being dropped, but looking in hindsight, if this is going to be what we get out of that dropping, then then Nick may have done a good move for once. So I was very, very pleased with Rochelle's game. Some people would argue he's right up there in contention for best on ground when you look at the fact of what his output was. So I mean,
Absolutely.
And yeah, so you'd have to consider him at that level as well. So I thought he was absolutely fantastic. His ball handling was pretty clean, and as I say, he was always looking to give it to somebody in a better spot. Loved his game.
Big man.
Can't teach goal sense either. He's so clinical with those snaps around goal. He just knows where the posts are. So, he was fantastic today. I think you guys summed it up really well. I just remember another miss. Keys missed that. He kicked it out in the full from the pocket. I want to say maybe the second quarter. And that was actually one where Keys should have given it off to Rash. In the
that's
pocket.
right. That's going to be a challenge.
Snap.
That one.
So. Yeah,
that's going to be a challenge.
So,
I'm not kicking on my left.
Look, the thing about Rash too is that he can accumulate too. So he's not just a 6 touches, 2 goals kind of guy. He gets up the field. He works hard. Obviously, that preseason he's had is really going to help with that too in terms of his work rate. What do you have? 21 touches today. So you see what Dylan Moore does at Hawthorn. I don't know if Rash has got ever going to have the running ability of Dylan Moore, but I think he can have that. He can become that sort of 20 touch a goal. 20 touch a game forward, and obviously his skill around goals is fantastic as well. So if he can put that together, he can be the kind of guy that averages at the end of the season 20 touches and 1 or 2 goals a game. That's brilliant as a forward. And I think he's got that in his kit bag. Maybe as soon as this year. We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, he's going to have some down games, but that was a fantastic game for him today.
Yeah. And was it Rue that said he'd knocked 20 seconds off his 2 minute? Sorry, start again. 20 seconds off his 2K time trial. And it showed. He just stripped fit. He played a mature game. He looked like a footballer, whereas previously he looked like a flashy in and out of the game type of player. Now he looked like a footballer, and all credit to him because it's it's just a result of the hard work that he's done. Final thoughts. We'll go around the grounds. Macca, what are your final thoughts?
It's you got to take into account the fact that who we played against and who they had out, and but if you disregard that, you'd have to say it was a magnificent effort by the boys, and they were outstanding. but I will qualify it with that particular point. So, but we can only play against the team that's out there, and so we did, and so I think even the coach gets a thumbs up today. I think he didn't make any outstanding errors that we could see. So, and well, he normally does, and I can't think of anything that was really, really bad today that he could have done. So the test comes next week. We're playing Essendon, who I watched that particular game, and I thought that they're going to test us a bit, Feen, because they really have got some classy players in their midfield, and our midfield dominated today, and it's going to be up against a much, much tougher midfield next week. And you raised a point about Hugh Bond, and you might be onto something there, because looking young Kako in their forward line, by God, he's a good little nippy player, that bloke. So look, we were good this week. We were really good, and I know we were being talked up, I think, beyond what we really were. And the real test comes when we play Essendon next week. Now, if we were to play and beat Essendon next week, then I would say this game really had some meaning. At the moment, I don't really know until we play a quality side. I know that we're better than last year, but how far, we'll find out next week.
Yeah. 6 rounds, they usually say, Brownie, isn't it? What's your final thoughts, mate?
Yeah. I think if you look at most years, you can't get much of a gauge the first few weeks, but I'm going to start off being positive, saying at least we can't be 5-0 after 5 rounds. So, it's a much more positive start to the year. So, but like Macca said, I think we're going to go from the game we played today to playing on a rock hard surface under a roof with a team that are quick, and they cut us up last time we played them there, and it was just their speed. I think we're quicker.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to come down to, we had a couple of 5-minute lapses in the second quarter, and even probably 5-10 minute lapses in the last quarter. You can't do that there, because the team can kick, in 5 minutes they can kick 6 goals. So it's going to be a really good challenge. But I think coming off the back of a win where the guys have got confidence, that's probably the position you want to be in when you're going over there. So I've got a bit of hope that if we can just stay with them in the first half, we might have enough class to beat them.
Big man, final thoughts?
I don't want to be the nerdy guy, but I will say, Brady, one thing. It's actually at the MCG, this game, not Marvel.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, so, Feen, do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing for us?
Well, I think it's good in terms of experience. I don't think... Look, I think we can play on a fast deck. I'd rather not play Essendon on a fast deck. So I think it's probably a net positive.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see. Like, I agree. You don't want to get too carried away by the round 1 win, because traditionally round 1's a bit of a fluky round as it is. But gee, this would be our first round 1 win since the Geelong game a few years ago, and then before that, I think it was 2017 against the Giants. So it's nice to feel positive for once at the start of a season. Obviously, it doesn't mean a whole lot if we go over and get smacked and look like we did against Hawthorn last year, where we looked completely off the pace. Essendon are an okay side. They've got some good players. Obviously, Merritt's got a great history against us. It'd be nice if Archie Perkins doesn't seem to lift for us this year, because it seems like every time we play Essendon, Perkins plays his best game for the year. But one thing I do think is that our key forwards should be pretty hard for them to handle. If Jordan Ridley's out, he's not going to play, and they haven't got Langford up forward either, so they can't swing him back. So I think we can expose them with our height and class up forward. It's just a matter of making sure we get that midfield battle won again like we did today. If the mids can play anything like they did today, then I think we're a real shot.
Yeah. My final thoughts are that it was a solid win with plenty to work on, and I think that's where you want to be at the beginning of the season. I don't think you want to be March premiers, and you want to be able to bank wins, but you certainly want to. It's a marathon, the AFL season, not a sprint. I think we've got a lot to work on in terms of our transition and our connection into forward 50, a bit to tidy up probably in terms of how we configure down back. Probably a little bit of horses for courses there. But the fact that we were able to bank a pretty good win with still a fair bit for Nix and the coaching staff to work on in the weeks ahead is a positive. And I'm pretty bullish about. I'm almost Jared Healy-ish about this season. We'd have to, but having said that, it's round one, and there are a lot of improving teams this year. Gold Coast gave West Coast a touch up. Hawthorn are sitting pretty after a couple of rounds. There are a lot of sides competing for those 8 spots. I think it's going to be a bit of a logjam. So we will need to improve, I believe, in order to be competing for a top 8 spot. But that being said, I think we have the capacity to improve quite a bit. So all went pretty well. Now, gentlemen, just excuse me for a moment while I look after a little bit of housekeeping. And let's get this going. So, first of all, I just want to remind people of the supporters of the cast, Once Sport. For those of you who caught my preview video last week, you would have seen a little bit of it in action. It's a sports analysis software that allows you to track statistics and do video analysis, as well as some coaching board stuff as well. It's very versatile, and it has been adapted for our game, AFL. I wouldn't say it's the champion data level, because they're not charging champion data money for it. It's actually very reasonable and perfect for a district club or an amateur league club or a junior club or something like that. So by all means, check it out on the previous show and on the Coach's Box show that'll be coming out on Tuesday, and you'll see it in action. And you can also, there's one thing that you can do, you can actually film a game with a static camera. If you set the static camera up at the halfway point of the oval, it'll actually fisheye and catch the whole oval. So, and then you can do things like track distances and all sorts of stuff. The speed that people are running, it's pretty damn good. So get around it. And for people who are supporters of the Crowcast, if you are interested in the software and you want to give it a go, use Crowcast10 as the code, and they'll give you 10% off whatever purchases you make. So that's fantastic support from Once Sport. They're giving us use of the software for free, plus they're providing 10% discount to Crowcast listeners. Also, just for those who haven't yet, get around our Discord. It's a fantastic community. We've got nearly 450 members in here now. The chat's pretty solid during the week, and then it ramps up on game day. The stadium chat was fantastic today. We had tons of people in, and of course the live chat, as you can see on the screen tonight. So get around our Discord. It's lively all the time, and well worth getting in. As I mentioned before, if you're watching on YouTube and you haven't yet, and you do like what you see, then drop us a like and a subscribe. It really does help us out. And if anyone does want to support the channel financially, you can either drop in a super thanks if you're watching on demand, or a super chat if you want your chat highlighted while we're live, or you can actually become a YouTube member, and all our pre-recorded stuff, our preview show, our Coach's Box show, and any other stuff, there'll be a list management analysis video dropping next week as well. YouTube members get that 24 hours ahead of time, just as a thank you. Right, now the tipping competition, and I noticed that our community manager Matt decided he'd bugger off before I dragged him onto the stage to talk about it, so I'll talk about it. And does this include? I reckon it might include the. Let me just refresh it and see if it does include the. Oh, now it's refreshed to include the Gold Coast game. Pardon me. So Matty Crow, Jordan, and Adam, and also Stu, and also Munjit, and also Sam M are all on 9, which is not a bad effort. They all scored 8 this week. We got Kirk, Ben, Chris, Michael, cast of thousands actually on 8. You can see it there on the screen. Where am I, Macca? Oh, I'm down there. I'm on 7. That's not too bad for me, considering I'm hopeless at footy tips. There's a couple there that probably need to get a riddle on. Baxter, I'm very disappointed in Baxter. Only the 4. He's better than that. Much better than that. So he needs to get a wriggle on. So I'm not sure whether you can still join the tipping comp, but there's codes in that in Discord. If you want to get around it with a late start, then get in. Now, I haven't got access to the fantasy league, so young Matt will come on and talk to us about the fantasy league next week. The other thing too is on our Discord we have a monthly T-shirt giveaway, and this month, even though no one's bloody entered the bloody thing, so maybe my merch is just shit. I don't know, Macca. What do you reckon? But it's for free. It's a free T-shirt. I'm actually wearing it, and it's come up pretty good. So this is the T-shirt that, if you can see that, this is the T-shirt that we're giving away this month.
Yeah, they're probably scared they're going to get the used one though, mate.
What?
Do you have smaller sizes?
You're an arsehole. Get stuff.
Who said that?
Oh, who do you think? Bloody Brownie. The whole reason I got him on the show to give me shit, but I didn't expect him to do it so quick. So, look, if you're in Discord and you want a free T-shirt, and yes, you can get smaller sizes, even for puny little rakes like you, Brown, then get around it. And we'll that gets drawn at the end of every month. We gave away tickets to the game today, and Dominic Crow was the winner. He sent through some videos, enjoyed it with his, I think he went with his grandma. So we'll post those up on socials as well. Keep an eye out for those at the beginning of every month. So all good. I think that's all the housekeeping I need. Oh, and just if you do feel like you want to sponsor the Crowcast, there's plenty of opportunities to do so. What have I done here? Plenty of opportunities to do so. We've got lots of different options. All your support is greatly appreciated. So if you're running a business, or if you know someone who is running a business and might want a little bit of exposure, the bonus is sponsoring us, that it's very much a localized audience. So if you're an Adelaide business, even though our numbers aren't huge by YouTube standards, they're pretty good by Adelaide standards, and pretty good by Footy Channel standards as well. So you'll get good coverage, and any help will be appreciated. Let's get on to the weekend's results, shall we?
Right, you want me to have a crack at it, Pete?
Oh, why not, Macca? Why not?
All right, I'll do it very quickly. All
right.
And I think, the week the round started off with Richmond and versus Carlton. Look, the Blue Baggers, they banged their chest that with we are the mighty Blues and all the rest of it. Bloody Richmond got up and beat them. Absolutely.
Unbelievable.
And I was so pleased about it, because it couldn't happen to a better bloody team. They're always saying how great they bloody are, and they're getting beaten by everybody would say that Richmond wouldn't win a game. Well, they won the first bloody game. Well done to them. Hawthorn looking good, but I must say Essendon worry me, because they were very, very competitive, and Hawthorn are good. They are a very, very even team, Hawthorn, and they've got a good coach in Mitchell. He really knows what he's doing. They like the way they play. But Essendon, they've got a good midfield, and their midfield did fire. So we're going to have to really work hard in that particular area. Geelong, they absolutely lacerated Freo by 78 points, and they did. They just lacerated them. And there was nothing to like about Freo's game. Nothing. Seriously, I can't make any excuses for them, anything like that. They were bloody pathetic, absolutely woeful. The Bulldogs in a pretty ordinary game. Yeah, they got up.
Why are you doing it in order? You've messed up my whole slide.
Oh, have I?
Are you doing it in
am I
game
out of order?
order? Yeah, of course you are.
I thought I'm doing it in game order, aren't I?
I don't know. Where are you up to? Bulldogs. Here we go.
But yeah, Bulldogs. Yeah.
What about the
against North
Sydney? What
Melbourne.
about Sydney and Lions?
Now, look, I had a game missing. That's the one I've got missing.
That's the one.
Sorry.
That was the best game of the round. Brisbane getting up. I'll do this.
No, look,
one, Brisbane getting up by 4 points.
Yeah, well, actually, I did watch that game, and it was a ripper of a game. Jeez, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, and the Bulldogs by 16 points over competitive North Melbourne.
Right.
Look, North Melbourne's got a heap of bloody talent in their side, and look, maybe not this year, but by God, next year there's going to be an explosion with North Melbourne once all these young guys really get their act together, because they've been down the bottom so regularly for so long. They've got some real quality in their team. So if they retain it all, they've got a future. The Pies over an absolutely pathetic Port, absolutely pathetic, and you don't even know which coach to blame. You don't even know which coach to blame for it, Fiend. We had one looked like Kari pulling the moves up top, and Kenny telling them what to do down below. So
well, Kenny did the press conference. So
I know. I think it's I'm never been a fan of the two coach system. The coach and the coach in waiting. You saw how that blew up with Collingwood when Mickey Malthouse and Buckley. That worked a bloody treat, didn't it? And you would have thought Port would have been warned, but their players, I mean, they have a habit. I mean, I watched Carl Amon absolutely firing for Hawthorn on the wing and just about BOG. Houston starring, against them. They traded him to coaches who wasn't worth a pinch of shit. I mean, sorry, I'm really glad we didn't. I'm glad we didn't get him, Fiend. I'm really glad we didn't get him. No, he's just not the type of player we need in our style of game.
He wouldn't have suited our side, no.
No, and I thought Port were absolutely pathetic, really weak. I think Rosie as a captain, I've got to be very critical here. Rosie doesn't set a good example as a captain. You look at the example Dawson set for us. Rosie is a freeloader, and he, because he likes the ball on the outside, that's not the guy you need for your captain. They've got the wrong guy as captain. GWS in Melbourne, absolute thrillers today. Absolute thriller. And then, GWS behind. Melbourne look like winning it. GWS make a late thrust, get a mark, and they haven't got to have a shot with no time left. Kick to goal, they win. And, the Melbourne supporters, they were shattered because they really, really looked like they were going to win it, but they didn't. And finally, Gold Coast, they murdered West Coast, 81 points.
Yeah,
so,
the score that I've got up there was the score that was going when I put this slide together. They ended up winning 20 goals, 16, 136 to 749, an absolute shellacking, and a good start for Gold Coast. Yeah,
but easy percentage too, Fiend, and I thought West Coast might be a little bit better this year. Maybe Gold Coast have improved a lot, but not much resistance by West Coast. So that's about it, mate.
Thank you, Macca. That was eventful. Looking at the ladder, we have now again. This doesn't account for Gold Coast, but no, they're third anyway. So we've got the Giants and Hawthorn on top with 8 points each, 2 wins from 2. Gold Coast with 1 win, Geelong with 1, Adelaide with 1, Collingwood with 1 from 2 matches, Richmond amazingly with 1, and Western Bulldogs with 1, rounding up the top 8. And then we've got Brisbane just outside of the 8 with 1 win, and then the rest are winless: Melbourne, Sydney, North, Carlton, Essendon, St Kilda, Fremantle, West Coast, and Port Adelaide last. And I tell you what, if they throw up a couple more like that, Kenny will be gone before gather round. He won't get to go to the festival. He'll be kicked out of the state if they chuck a couple more of those up. They were disgusting.
Pathetic.
I had to laugh at Tredre on the talk back after the game, and he said, we'll judge Port Adelaide by how they respond this week. It's quite convenient they get to play Richmond at Adelaide Oval, so because I actually expect Port will go gangbusters this weekend because they love an easy kill, and I know Richmond looked fantastic the other night, but typically with those young teams, once they've had a big win, they come crashing down the next week. So don't be surprised if Luco kicks 6 and, they run riot for this week and they'll be up and about again and before they get another reality check.
I mean, I know that they were missing Butters, Brownie, but they look like shit. And to be honest with you, if Richmond bring the same energy against them that they brought against Carlton, they'll give them a run.
Oh, absolutely. And they just don't have a forward line. And
No.
I don't know. They haven't got any real options. With Marshall going was a massive negative for them. Without Marshall for the year, Georgiadis is the focal point, and I don't think he's a good player, but he's not good enough to be the focal point without a big body around him. And missing Dixon, without Dixon being the focal point, I think it's going to take them a long time to adjust if they do.
And they got no defence. They've got their star-studded midfield, and that's all well and good. But I thought Ollie Wines had a terrible game. I don't know why I'm talking about Port, but I was a bit shocked, at how far they've fallen, but shocked in a nice way. And gentlemen, 1 hour 20 minutes. We got through all of that. Let's just quickly look towards next week before we finish up. Essendon, obviously, at the G. We've already spoken a little bit about it, but I'll just go around the room. Big man, early days, obviously. We've got a week of training and a bit of selection, etc. to get through. But what's your feel?
My feel is that I still think Essendon are a real danger, particularly at the start of the year. They tend to start the years pretty hot. And I agree with what Macca said in his summary. They took it up to Hawthorn. And, Hawthorn they're rock solid right now and they're very well coached, and Essendon still gave them a bit of a scare at times. So we have to be on our A game. If you look at our travelling, the teams we travel to face this year, there's some tough ones. And in round 4, we play Gold Coast, which looks really tough now. So I think if we're going to bank an away win, this is probably one we need to try and get. So it's a good test for the boys because it's easy to win at home when everyone's pumping you up and everything, but it'll be a much harder story this weekend at the G. So let's see if they can do it.
Brownie?
Well, now that I know it's at the G, I've got a bit more confidence. I think, yeah, I didn't do the form there, did I? I think at the G, as long as we don't have a letdown after that first week, as long as we can come out with really good intensity, we're definitely a better side than we were last year when they beat us at home. We didn't match up that well with them man for man last year, but we're a different side this year, I think. And with a bit more midfield depth and the forward line we've got, if we move the ball quickly, I'm pretty hopeful that we can beat them.
Mac?
Well, it's all to me, it's going to revolve around the midfield. I think, if we look at our defence is pretty good, and their forward line, that's not in their favour, I don't think, except for one young Kako. I think Bond has to be an inclusion to stand him because the kid's got class. He really has got class. And I'd have Bondi in for him. And our forward line, I think our forward line is good and will worry their defence. The one area of concern for me is the midfield. I was very impressed with their midfield, even though that they were getting beat. Their midfield, Merritt and the Durham, there was a couple other guys there that they really had top games. Look, if we can break even the midfield, we'll win the game. There's no doubt about that. And I think, to me, the game's going to be won and lost in the midfield because the rest of the ground, I think we can do better than them. But that's where, if we're going to get beat, it'll be the midfield. Draper's a good ruckman, so, O'Brien's got to be at his very, very best. I believe we'll win, but I don't think it'll be by a very big margin. I'll only go for about 13 points.
Firewalker in the chat makes a very good point. When was the last time we won at the MCG?
And that
he
is
reckons
a good
2017 against Hawthorn.
No, that's right. Yeah, round 2, 2017.
Yeah, and that's a long
We
time.
We drew Collingwood that year later in the year with the McGovern goal after the siren, but that was Hawthorn that year.
Yeah. and we've had a couple of close ones against Collingwood there since. That's a massive. We haven't won there since our grand final year. That's massive, and I think it's something that Matthew Nix should put up on the whiteboard. That's, when you're having a successful year, you tick off little milestones along the way, and I reckon winning at the G would be one of them this year. And what better way to motivate the boys after a good win first up to get their minds back on the job and get them ready for the weekend. Look, I'm not so much worried about the midfield contest, Macca, at stoppage. I am worried about the midfield in general play. I'm worried that we're lazy in transition. The MCG is a big wide ground. We're going to have to spread well when we have the ball, and we're going to have to cover them well when they've got the ball because they like to run. I think we'll do a right around stoppage. We tend to do a right around stoppage. I think we've got the firepower to kick enough goals if we get enough forward 50 entries. I think we've got the defence to hold them. I'm worried about between the 50-metre arcs. That'll be the test, and if we can win that battle between the arcs, then I think we win. But it should be a good game. I think we tend to have good games against Essendon.
Yeah, we do, Feen, but we lost last time against them, and it was their midfield again that got hold of us. So, I think.
Sorry, Mac. I was going to say we actually won the last time we played Essendon. It was the Rochelle goal, the snap at the pocket at the Marvel Stadium.
Oh,
was that after the Draper game?
Yeah, so we played him twice, and Draper, the Draper flop was earlier in the year, and then we played him again later in the year.
I forgot. I
we won by
about
a couple
that.
of points.
Well, thanks for the correction. I feel a bit more confident now. Look, it's going to be. That's what it's going to be. Well, I think, Fee, you summed it up very well. It's that movement of theirs, and I'd actually be saying to Peatling, I'd say, Peatling, you've got one job, and you stand Merritt for the game, and just keep Merritt out of the game, and so they then have to rely on their other mids as well, which are pretty good mids, by the way. So they, but just if you can nullify Merritt, it does help. But as I said, I think we can win, but it'll be a tight one, and we do need to nullify their midfield to some extent.
Wonderful. Look, thank you to everyone who's joined us on Discord and on YouTube tonight. We've had a fantastic audience tonight between the two platforms. Thanks, Arab, for coming on. I hope that you guys can all catch the Coach's Box during the week and our match preview later in the week as well. Plenty of content coming along from the Crowcast. Oh my God, I can't speak anymore. Crowcast YouTube channel. So given that I've clearly had a stroke, we better finish up. All right. Good night, gentlemen. Good night, audience. We'll see you next week.
Yep. Good night, one and all.
Cheers.